So this is, or perhaps this is going to be, or perhaps even this is intended to be, another installment in a series that I'm calling Further Notes on the Importance of Context in Representational, Rhetorical, Descriptive, Demonstrative, Illustrative, and Performative Acts of Communication. I think those are all the adjectival descriptors that I'm using. If I skipped one or if I added one, my apologies for that. And I don't actually, because I'm not particularly good at linear sequencing, and even if I were good at linear sequencing, I'm not particularly good at recalling and remembering random numbers, and that's part of my dyscalculia, which is, as I have been saying, part of the continuum of what would you call it? Dyssemia, as in semantics or semiotics, but the part of the continuum of dyssemias that I'm just coining that as a term that I have that involve dysgraphia, dyslexia, and dyscalculia. And but in any case, since I'm not good at sequencing or remembering strings of numbers or remembering particular random numbers that don't have relevant semantic meaning to me, I can't remember what number we are actually on if one wanted to linearly sequence the series Further Notes on the Importance of Context in Representational, Rhetorical, Descriptive, Demonstrative, Illustrative, and Performative Acts of Communication. So I'm just going to call this, I'm going to call this 59, and 59 isn't obvious from the space-time travel communication coordinates here that are readily available to us. I'm going to take these first three, 10, 6, and 7, but we're going to derive the number 59, and I guess that that derivation is part of what is basically the subject of this particular inquiry under that header, Further Notes on the Importance of Context in Representational, Rhetorical, Descriptive, Demonstrative, Illustrative, and Performative Acts of Communication. So yesterday, let's begin with yesterday. Yesterday, the space-time travel communication coordinates that would have represented this section here were 10, 6, and 6. And then this additional 7 was added either overnight or this morning sometime. And we'll talk about the significance of adding that of increasing the 67, because we're going to take that as 67, or increasing the 66 to 67. Why that has a relevant context today, August 16th, 2022, and that context is as the title of our series implies, all about what the ideas that we're working with today. All right, so let's take this space-time travel communication coordinate for what it was yesterday, and investigate that. So we have a 10, and I'm going to take that as the space-time communication travel coordinate for the smart playlist set Gauzel, and then let's take a look at what the number 6 represents, and then what the number 66 represents in Gauzel, and then we'll go from there. So that was the context yesterday, or that was the literally, right, the space-time travel coordinate designation yesterday, and yesterday's context, I believe, and I will argue, is leading up to today's context, which is August 16th, 2023. All right, so if we go to playlist 10, which, as I stated, this is playlist 10 in the Smart playlist set, and the first thing that we have to do with the 6 and the 66 is, because this is part of our transformational system, convert all of the 6s into 9s as we convert all of the 9s into 6s. So in this case, the 6 becomes 9 and the 66 becomes 99. So let's go over here and figure out how many items that we have in this playlist. So we have 14 items. So first, the first 9 is easy. We linear sequence that down 9, count off 9. This is actually the difficult part for me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that coordinate represents fire in my heart. All right, so let's do the 99, and once again we have 14. All right, so 14 times 7 is 98. There's fiber barking away. We may have to take another break here. So 98 is the last number in the set, right? So if we go around 7 times, we loop it 7 times, we get to eternity, and then we have an extra because 98 plus 1 is 99, and then we get to my eyes, my heart. So if we combine those together, my eyes, my heart, and fire in my heart, depending on what kind of sets we want to build, if we want to build a set of common values around the two sets, right? The intersection of the two sets is my heart. And if we want to build a set out of the differences, that is, what the sets don't have in common, we have fire in my eyes, I suppose. We have my eyes and fire. Then, utilizing this same value, the numerical value 10, and with the addition, right, we have 67, which is a higher value than 66, but using our system, in which we convert all the 6s into 9s, we have now 97, which is actually a lower value than the 99 that was represented by my eyes, my heart, right? So we need to subtract 2 from 99. So if we come down here, we have eternity and dawn. Well, ideally, we would have had fire again, and then we would have had the association of fire and heart, and then we could have perhaps, taken out the eyes if we wanted to utilize, an intersection idea in the set that we were creating, and what this new set seems to have in common with the old set from the value 99 that was derived from the 6 and the 6, but we have instead dawn, and the idea of dawn or new day or beginning for today is somewhat interesting, because this happens to be my birthday, August 16th, 2023, and I'm 59 years old today. Now, that number 59, which I promised to explain, can in a certain way be derived from these values, space-time communication coordinate values 10, 6, and 7. That number still isn't obvious just looking at the gazelle, or rather, I mispronounced that, the gazelle. So we need to look at other ways that we can organize these space-time travel communication coordinates. And let's say that rather than being 10, this set right here represents the number 106. 6. And therefore, using our, transformational grammar of 6s into 9s and 9s into 6s, it represents 109. So let's go ahead and find that value. And that value is going to be an Eric Dolphy value. So I've memorized that Eric Dolphy's blue is 100, so we need to count off 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we have the fire again. And I'm going to play a little bit with the transformational grammar that we have involving the 6s of the 9 and 9s today, and just intuitively see what we get if we go back up to a non-transformative grammar for our space-time travel communication coordinates that retains 6s as 6s and 9s as 9s. We'll go back up to 3. So we have that fire. We have fire and heart, and the eyes are already the eyes are already part of the system, right? In space-time travel communication coordinates, because observation is communication, and that always implies, whether it's metaphorical or literal, that eyes play a part in these acts of communication. And in fact, these numbers represent views, which also suggest eyes. So we have this play going on insofar as we're using the transformative grammar system, in which fire and heart and eyes, right, are being referred to in these space-time travel communication coordinates, both yesterday and today. So let's try taking the 6s as 6s and 9s as 9s. Let's go start with Dolphy. 1, 2, 3. And so this is the actual, space-time travel communication coordinate for 106, and then there happen to be seven songs in this 106 set simple playlist, simple as opposed to smart, and this is the 7th element in that playlist, the title Feathers. All right, and here is where I want to locate this number 59. All right, so if looking at this and transforming, which is one of the ways that our BRE questions work, by transforming letters into numerical values. And one of the reasons that we do that is because we're playing with the idea of giving our readership the experience of what it's like to be dyslexic. And one of the ways that we do that is that we spell things out, in quotation marks, that spell, with numerical values. So this word would be spelled 6, 5, 1, 20, 8, 5, 18, 19, and then of course the 19 has to be transformed into a 16 via our grammar, right? And the 6 has to be transformed into a 9 via our grammar, so that the way that this word would be spelled in our BRE and space-time travel communication coordinate system combined would be 9, 5, 1, 20, 8, 5, 18, 16, right? All right, now, given that, we're already working within a non-transformational system, right? Because the The transformational system brought us to this set, right, and to firewalls, but the non-transformational system brought us to this set, 106, and to this song, Feathers. So our context is that we're working within a non-transformational system. And if we're working within a non-transformational system and we're taking the first two letters and transforming them into numbers, right? I'm going to reverse them, but we have a 5 and we have a 6. Given that there's a certain amount of play in the way that we've been working within transformational and back and forth between transformational and non-transformational systems, I'm going to suggest that we have the option of enlisting the transformational system and calling this, a 9, right? And given that, we have the number 59, which corresponds to how many years are represented by this particular birthday for me. And the remainder here, we can utilize the remainder to spell out the word hearts. And the reason that I want to spell out the word hearts is because in a certain way, going back up to what we have at the top of the page today, it plays with this particular poem by Apollinaire, in which, Apollinaire imagines his heart to resemble a flame turned upside down. And that whole play with fire and heart that's been going on since yesterday in the transformational grammar system, in which 6s are transformed into 9s and 9s are transformed into 6s. I think, or at least this is how I'm interpreting it in the context of this particular date, is also, going on here. And on one's birthday, right, if one, plays this particular game, a certain amount of candles can be presented on a cake, and each one of these candles represents a year, right? Now, within the sort of operative transformational grammar that belongs to this set, right, we can substitute hearts for these flames, for these candle flames that are represented on a birthday cake. Well, if that's the case, playing with this context in terms of, and playing with, both contexts of transformational grammar naive readings, right, which were just in a certain sense represented a few new videos backed by a reading that Aaron performed and referred to as transformational grammar naive, a new reading that he performed of an Ishmael Reed poem. Now, what makes the idea of a transformational grammar naive reading of an Ishmael Reed poem curious, interesting, and generative in relationship to this discussion that we're having today is that it was Ishmael Reed and my response to what I imagined might ambiguously or indeterminately be a response to some of the work that I recently put up. It was a response to Ishmael Reed's response to perhaps a response to a contract in phi through theta that initiated that transformational grammar of transforming all 6s into 9s and all 9s into 6s via this relationship to, of course, the Jimi Hendrix song. Let's go to, I'm going to locate a Jimi Hendrix complex playlist set. So this is complex playlist set, literally, 16, the James Blood Ulmer's 15, and then this counting linearly and sequentially would be 16, we refer to it as 19 because of all the sixes being transformed into nines. But if I go to the first set and I count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? If I count down 7, the seventh item in that 16 transformed into 19 playlist designation is of course if 6 was 9, and this was basically the what would you call it? Roman Jakobson would call it the dominant structural motivator for the poem that I presented in response to Ishmael Reed's perhaps response to something that a contract in Phi through Theta published, and then I referenced various works by Ishmael Reed and some of his commonalities, as well as some of our shared social political interests, and then developed an ongoing sort of set of transformations around that, and then that developed into a playlist designator on the YouTube playlist sets. I believe that we have something like 146. We should probably subtract a few and bring that down to 144. But for the time being, I think we've got 146, which would be 149 under our designation, or perhaps it's 148. I'm not certain. But these playlists don't necessarily correspond to ongoing series. For example, like there isn't a playlist called Further Notes on the Importance of Context, even though there are quite a number of these sets, and this is an ongoing project. There's some overlap between the playlist sets and these kinds of series, but that also is intentional and generates what I would call asymmetries in the organizational system, and contributes, right, to the work that readers have to do in locating items. Most of my attendant audience and readership will realize that in trying to recall the name of a video, a title, and locate it and find it in the system is somewhat like navigating a maze, and that's intentional. There aren't a lot of complete maps. There are partial maps and partial instructions, but memory is an essential skill and ability for navigating the site, and I hope that navigating the site and playing with space-time travel communication coordinates and communicating with the contract in V through Theta and Aaron and the rest of us will develop, and augment, a number of skills and abilities, including all kinds of aspects of memory and associative memory and other kinds of memory. So that being the case, there's a kind of context in which the idea of transformation grammar naive readings of these number systems can be played out, and I'm imagining that that's what's going on in the play today, right? Because and that's inspired by Aaron's reference to his own reading as transformational grammar naive, right? And the way that it is transformational grammar naive in the reading that Aaron attends to is that there's a lot of dialect in this. There's a lot of dialect and idiolect in this particular Ishmael Reed poem, and Aaron, and then it has to be transcribed. So that's verbal, right? That's oral communication. This dialect is like verbal oral communication. It has to be transcribed into a system of letters. Well, Aaron reads these letters as if he didn't understand that they represent this particular kind of dialect and idiolect and register and social register, right? And it's funny and awkward, but it also sets a precedent for pretending that we don't know that all these nines, need to be transformed into sixes, and the sixes need to be transformed into nines. So that's what I'm imagining is going on in shifting back and forth between these sixes and nines today. That's the context, right? And what allows me to do that is that this transformation first emerged, right, under the aegis of a poem directed toward Ishmael Reed. All right, so let's go back to the Eric Dolphy, which is 106. So let's count that out again. From blue, which, as I said, I've memorized, is 100. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that brings us, once again back to the feathers. And then shifting back and forth between transformational grammar naive and transformational grammar aware systems, I allow myself to designate the F as a 9 rather than as a 6, and I get the number of years that I have for my birthday, which August 16th is the context for, and reorganizing these letters anagrammatically, I get the reference to the heart again, which as we've been discussing, gets played out back and forth in this kind of ambiguous figure, right, of the heart and the flame that refers to perhaps how many candles I would have on my cake, and presents it in the form of 59 hearts. Kind of where I wanted to end things today, that context allows me to read and to respond to this message as I'm receiving it and interpreting it, allowing myself to violate the transformation, 1, 2, 3, from firewalls to feathers, also, right? Also based on a context, a rather immediate context, or at least, a current context in which, Aaron read a poem by Ishmael Reed, who we've already associated with the if 6 was 9 transformational grammar, and did so in a transformational grammar naive manner. So we'll just we'll end it right there with the 59 hearts.